When it comes to people's passionate opinions on video game characters, most of the opinions can be narrowed down into two basic categories. You love them, or you hate them. And as much as people love the characters they love, people love others talking about the characters they hate even more for some reason. Which is why so many people have done their take on the topic. Time for me to be unoriginal again? Alright then. To be perfectly honest, I'm not a very hateful person. I'm pretty positive when it comes to stuff like this, and even when there are things in games or characters in games that apparently everyone despises, I usually don't feel these extreme emotions, or I do only to a very mild degree. In fact, I tried making this a top 10, but I simply couldn't find enough characters that I honestly hate, which is why it's only a top 5. So, when I'm saying that I hate these characters, you know I mean it. For whatever reason, these characters just hit a nerve with me that makes them almost insufferable to me, and makes me feel like softly seething in the corner with repressed rage. So let's get this over with. Man, there are a lot of unlikable characters in No More Heroes. Bastard Brat Jr., Munging Fuckman, even Pooh Dickweasel over here. So many bosses we hate a lot. And my pick for my most hated is Shinobu from both games, or as I like to call her, Miss Jumpy Gets Hit a Bunch. For starters, she was one of the bosses in the first game, and I cannot tell you how much I don't like this fight. Compared to the introduction and characterizations of Death Metal and Dr. Peace, Shinobu's is such a letdown. Not only does she kill a class full of students just because they learn she's an assassin, but her cold and abrasive attitude towards Travis mixed with her attempting to avenge her father's death, which is something that is never elaborated on, just makes everything feel lackluster. Also, her fight is in a boring locale with forgettable music, her fighting style is annoying as hell, and when she's a low health can throw out moves that can deplete your health faster than some of the top ranked bosses can, making you feel pretty unfair when you lose. And she also happens to come back in the second game as a playable character. Not only does her taunting lead her to get hit all the frickin' time by enemies, she has barely functional platforming in her 2 levels, the 2 particular levels I'm talking about also having the 2 most annoying bosses in the game who I have previously mentioned. These things aren't necessarily to blame on Shinobu directly, but it annoys me that we get stuck with her throughout the 2 worst levels in the game where Sir Henry motherfucker only gets used for 1 boss fight. Instead of getting to have more time playing as the amazing Irish bastard himself, you know, Travis's twin brother and final boss of the previous game, we get the samurai girl, whose only reason for not being dead like every other ranked boss in the game was because this fight was before Travis stopped being a sexist arse and treated male and female assassins equally. Speaking of her relationship with Travis in the sequel, actually, out of freaking nowhere, she suddenly wants nothing but Travis's attention, wanting to prove her worth to him, calling him master all the time, and even trying to blatantly have sex with him. Like, why? Why does she have these feelings for Travis, the guy who cut off her hand, said one to her after she saved his life later on, then had nothing and wanted nothing to do with her for 3 years? I can think of at least one redeeming thing for the likes of Jasper and Million Gunman, but Shinobu? I can't find a single thing that I don't hate about her. An annoying and surprisingly unmemorable boss who is brought back as a lackluster playable character in its sequel. Splendid start to the list. Sonic characters. Oh, the multitude of characters we have at our disposal to rip apart. While I feel that there are quite a lot of pretty damn good Sonic characters that people do recognize, yeah, there's a lot of crap surfing through it. And the worst of which is a big purple cat that is completely worthless. Whoo boy. Big the Cat. Even when compared to characters like Charmy and Elise, I still despise you the most, and anyone who knows these characters know that's saying something. Well, being honest, my first exposure to this character was in Sonic Heroes, and I didn't necessarily hate him. He was just easily my least favorite of the power characters. I mean, compared to a huge-knuckled echidna, a cool robot that can fire shit from his arms, and a beefy crocodile, who'd pick the fat cat with the umbrella and the fishing rod? Clearly the obvious, but it was only when I played his game of origin, Sonic Adventure, that I really began to hate this bastard. It was kind of amazing. Never before have I actually wanted a character to shut up so much in my life. And seeing how little actual dialogue he has in this game,
Hold on, Froggy. I'm coming. How to play as me? Big Froggy. Is that you? Froggy! Wait up! Froggy! There you are.
I want to know something weird? Guess who Big's voice actor also voiced? Take a wild guess. Duke Nukem. How can a guy who sounds so cool voice a character who's so annoying? What did you do? As I've said in the previous video, the only reason I haven't beaten Sonic Adventure is because I cannot bring myself to put up with this bastard. The style of gameplay is insufferably dull and trivial and endlessly repetitive. Having to catch the same stupid frog multiple times just in multiple locations instead of doing something cool like the rest of the characters in the game. And the worst part of all this is how absolutely incompetent Big is. You know why you have to catch the same frog multiple times in multiple areas? Because the stupid arse keeps losing him! You'll have caught him in the last level, some bullshit will happen, and whoopsie dum daisies! Froggy will bugger off elsewhere. Really doing a lot to make me like you, Big! I don't know who in their right mind thought this was a good idea. I mean, the whole purpose of this story is thanks to a fishing accessory for the Dreamcast, and they wanted to get their money back on investing money in this stupid peripheral, so they put a fishing mode in a Sonic game. And to think that the worst thing to come out of this dreadful idea was a totally inept, completely useless, and ultimately insufferable fat purple cat. I am so glad it's been a good couple of years since he showed up, and I want it to stay that way. I never want to see this useless piece of crap again. Time to talk about a character that I hate that I can guarantee no one else watching this video also hates. Mainly because you wouldn't have heard of him. It's Purple Eyes from Pokemon Ranger Guardian Signs. Being perfectly honest, every character from here on out is going to be a villain, where hating the character is somewhat justified. But specifically, these are villains I hate for more than just the standard reason. Which is why Purple Eyes is a great example. While he is most definitely in this evil team for himself and cares about literally no one but himself, committing horrible acts for his own benefit, which is typical villain affair, what makes me hate this is because it conflicts with all the other villains in the game. Blue Eyes, Red Eyes, the Societa, and the whole lot of the Pokemon Pinchers, despite all of their villainous tendencies, always had some redeeming qualities about them. Whether it be profound respect for the heroes, an overall sense of honor and principle, or even just actually performing genuinely good deeds with no evil incentive, there was no 100% evil character. Well, except for this douche. I'm actually kinda amazed in this cast of surprisingly noble villains that they managed to create one I hate so much. Not only is he a despicable character, but one of the Pokemon he specializes in is Metagross. I hate associating my favorite Pokemon with this sack of filth. After doing so much stuff for the villainous team in terms of kidnapping, destroying ancient artifacts, and tormenting Pokemon, they finally boot him off the team, just like they did to Blue Eyes earlier in the game. And while Blue Eyes used this as a chance to redeem herself by helping out the Rangers, Purple Eyes instead sees it as an opportunity to fuck over absolutely everyone else and become supreme ruler of the world. Dick move. Considering that this turnaround happens in the midst of the final boss battle against the at least respectable Ed the Thinker, and that the final battle against Purple Eyes is just Ed Mewtwo but supercharged, this tight vest wearing piece of crap is crap compared to the build up that Ed the Thinker had. Oh, and there was one more thing that seals my hatred for him. In the bonus DLC mission of this game, Arceus comes down to Earth after the horrible acts that happened in the story with the intention of purging the world and starting again. Your crew talks to Arceus to convince it to spare the world, talking about the good things in the world, and you know what? Arceus changes its mind. He actually listens and wants to spare everyone now. He's about to turn around and go home when guess who should walk in?
Like a possibly, you're wrong.
Purple Eyes struts right on in and says Arceus should destroy the world, but he should be spared, so the two of them can make a world for him to rule. Arceus, rightfully so, gets fucking pissed at his complete level of douchebag, forcing you to have to fight him to save the world. I think it's saying something when this one despicable excuse of a human being is enough to make God go,
You know what? I fucked up. All you assholes gotta be purged.
Speaks volumes, doesn't it? Xenoblade Chronicles. I don't know how many ways I'm going to end up singing your praises, but I have no intention of stopping anytime soon. Well, except for right now. Introducing the bitch and a half, Lorithia. Ooh, all you Xenoblade players out there know exactly what I'm talking about. There is nothing likable at all about this character. Even her revealing JRPG outfit isn't helpful thanks to that Cruella-esque face she has there. When the proper high-end tier are introduced in the game, yeah, they quickly establish themselves as the tight-arse stuck-up lot of this world, and I assumed Yumea was going to be the worst, but Lorithia manages to effortlessly trump her. Even when compared to the likes of Dixon, the guy who betrays you, mocks you, does so much evil shit, and even has dick in his name, Lorithia is still the worst. Dixon and Lorithia do end up being accomplices for the main villain of the game, and Lorithia does pretty much everything that Dixon does, but somehow manages to seem way more hateable than her partner. Oh, maybe because Dixon has some likable qualities. It was kind of clear even from her first appearances that she was gonna backstab the entire cast by the end of the game. Her first actual appearance in retrospect as a silhouette performing experiments to turn her own race into horrific monsters to purge the population of Bionis. She takes extreme pleasure in fucking over her entire species by turning them into mindless creatures known as Telethia to be used as pawns for the purging of the world, and directs all her mocking towards Melia in particular, transforming her brother into one of those Telethia and continuing to torment her time and time again. But the main reason a Xenoblade players hate her is not so much story, but gameplay. When you face her in a boss fight at the end of the worst dungeon in the entire game, you are met with the most frustrating and terrible boss fight in the game. It's borderline bullshit. Her physical defense is absurdly high, meaning that attacking with the physical attackers who make up half your party is pretty much fruitless, forcing you to rely on your ether users to even deal reasonable damage. On top of that, she can summon Novas that can keep her defense high, which also have high resistance to melee attacks, and can barrage you with attacks of their own. She can inflict high damaging attacks on you, and even go so far as to exploit flaws in your AI-controlled party's programming, pushing them into the acid surrounding the arena and leaving them to die, as your partners will not leave the acid unless you directly tell them to. And the entire duration of the fight, you have your ears assaulted as well.
You'll pay for your insolence. It'll all be over soon. This is for defying Lord Zanza. Pay homage to eternal power. Enjoy this battle, for it will be your last.
Let me tell you something. On my first playthrough, I tried at least a dozen times to beat her with no success with my usual team, switched in Melia, then grinded in the worst dungeon of the game for 2 hours, and only after another hour of consecutive attempts did I finally beat her. Simply typing in Lorithia in Google will give you results of people complaining about how hard this boss is, and for good fucking reason. A despicable bitch of a character who isn't even satisfying to kill. It's kind of amazing that she isn't number 1. But there's one character I hate more. The Legend of Zelda series is my favorite, yada yada yada, done this song dance enough times, so whatever. And I never understood why there were so many hated characters in this series. Navi, Fi, Tingle, Gabora, man, this list can be really long. And I don't hate any of them. There's not a single character in this amazing series that I hate. Oh wait, yes there fucking is! Oh man. I fast forwarded through my rant about this slimy bastard the last time I talked about him, but this time, ladies and gentlemen, you are getting my full rage. I hate Yuga. Never before in my life have I hated a character so to the core from the first time I encountered them in a game. A sorcerer? Tromping around Hyrule collecting the descendants of the 7 sages to free Ganon from his imprisonment? Never heard that one before. A male villain with gaudy amounts of eye makeup and an overall flamboyant, extravagant, and dramatic manner of speaking and acting? Never heard that one before! Yuka offers almost nothing new in terms of villainy in the Zelda universe, and just tries to ride off the coattails of 2 properly established villains in this series, and fails at doing so. He doesn't have the simple yet effective style of a Ganon, nor does he have the grand, extravagant, expressive, and incredibly wonderful demeanor and attitude of Girahim, and is just kinda stuck in the middle with nothing to show for himself. All he seems to be to me is some pompous, stuck-up, and endlessly self-absorbed asshole with pretty much nothing to show for himself. But his literal copy-pasting of Aghanim's objective actually got me excited. I mean, when this game was released, Ganon hadn't been in a game for like 6 years. My favorite villain in all of the game was finally going to be in a game that wasn't a spin-off! I was so pumped up and was eagerly anticipating its revival, and yes! We got it! The man himself is here! Ganon is in the game! For a whole 15 seconds! He then promptly gets absorbed into Yuga's body to create Yuga Ganon. Thank you, Yuga. You robbed me of something I've been waiting for a new Zelda game to do for years. you took one of the greatest villains in all of gaming and made him into this monstrosity. Fuck you! Surprisingly though, as you progress through the game, there was another development. It's fairly unsubtly hinted to you that Laurel's Zelda equivalent Hilda has underlying motivations for setting on a new quest in Laurel, ones with some villainous attributes to them. To me at least, this got me excited again. Not only would this be another female villain for the Zelda series, but for this parallel world Zelda to be the mastermind behind everything and would face me at the end sounded like an awesome concept that I really wanted to see. But we don't get that. This pasty ginger bastard couldn't keep his ugly face out of the spotlight. At the precise moment where I'm hyped for the Hilda battle to begin, oh, Yuga betrays her and fights you as the final boss. Because of course he does! He already robbed me of the villain I've been waiting years to see return. Why not rob me of a unique and interesting idea I was interested in seeing again? Fuck you! I utterly hate, despise, and loathe this character because in every single way to me, he is a disappointment. Brings nothing new in terms of his characteristics and actions, is annoying and irritating simply to read his dialogue and look at his grotty face. And when the game builds up two villains I was genuinely rooting for and begging for basically, he tarnishes both of them and shoves his lackluster self right into the limelight, making him my most hated character in all of gaming. I'm the Speedster, and never before have I hated a video game character so down to my very core in my life. I hope Nintendo never brings him back. Rot in hell, you putrid piece of filth! I'm out! Fuck you, Yuga!